The afternoon sun beat down on the nearly empty parking lot, its concrete surface reflecting a harsh glare off the parked cars. Steven Seagal, dressed in a simple black jacket and dark sunglasses, walked steadily between the rows of vehicles, hands tucked casually in his pockets. It was just another routine stop on his way home. Nothing unusual. At least that's what he thought. The lot was quiet except for the distant hum of a passing truck and the occasional flutter of wind carrying a stray receipt across the asphalt. Then, out of nowhere, a young rookie police officer emerged from behind a patrol car, his hand instantly going to his holstered weapon. He squinted at Steven, eyes narrowing, misjudging the calm, composed figure before him. "Freeze! Don't move!" the officer barked, his voice cracking slightly, betraying nerves. People nearby, alerted by the sudden shouting, began stopping in their tracks. A woman leaning against a sedan clutched her phone, instinctively recording the scene. A delivery driver paused on his dolly, uncertain whether to intervene. The lot, which had been a mundane corridor of cars and faint smells of gasoline, now felt like the opening of a storm. Steven stopped mid-step, hands still visible, and turned slowly to face the young officer. His voice was calm even, almost unnervingly so. "I'm not a threat," he said, his tone measured but carrying an undeniable weight. The officer's finger tightened slightly on the trigger, though his body shifted, betraying uncertainty. Around them, the atmosphere thickened. The hum of the air conditioning unit from a nearby building, the scraping of tires in the distance. Even the faint rustle of leaves became amplified in the tense silence. Bystanders whispered among themselves, some daring to record every moment. The officer's eyes flicked nervously to the crowd, realizing for the first time that this encounter was no longer private. Steven's calmness contrasted sharply with the rookie's jittery posture. Every movement he made, every measured word, sent a silent message. This was not a man to panic at. And yet, the young officer could not shake the doubt that gnawed at him. Who exactly was this man before him? And more importantly, what might happen if he misjudged him completely? In that ordinary parking lot, under the harsh sun and watchful eyes of bystanders, the tension was palpable. A routine afternoon had suddenly turned into a moment teetering on the edge of chaos, and only Steven Seagal's unmatched calm could tip the scales. The tension in the parking lot was thick enough to feel it pressing against the skin. Steven Seagal stood perfectly still, his dark sunglasses shielding his eyes, hands open and visible at his sides. The rookie cop, however, was a bundle of nerves, every muscle tensed as if waiting for a storm to break. He raised his weapon fully, finger trembling on the trigger, his voice cracking under the weight of authority and uncertainty. "Step back. Don't take another step," the officer barked, his tone harsher than he intended. He was trying to sound commanding, trying to convince himself as much as the man in front of him that he was in control. The bystanders froze. Some ducked behind cars. Others simply held their phones higher to capture every moment. A couple of teenagers had wandered into the lot on skateboards, and now they skidded to a halt, whispering anxiously, "What's going on? Is he dangerous?" Steven didn't move. He didn't flinch. His calm demeanor created a surreal contrast to the rookie's panic. His voice, low and steady, carried over the lot like an unshakable force. "Sir, I'm unarmed." "There's no reason for this," he said. The words were calm, authoritative, and precise. The kind of voice that made you stop and think, even in a moment of fear. The officer's finger twitched on the trigger, his eyes darting between Steven and the gathering crowd. He felt the pressure of every pair of eyes on him, the weight of accountability crushing down. He had been trained for situations like this, but he had never encountered someone who radiated such a composed presence. Every instinct screamed at him to act, to maintain control, but a part of him hesitated. Around the lot, the tension rippled through the crowd. People whispered, the sound of shaky hands capturing videos on their phones punctuating the quiet. The hum of traffic in the distance seemed muted, the wind stirring a loose piece of paper like a flag waving at the center of an invisible battlefield. Steven shifted his weight slightly, but his hands remained visible. He didn't advance, didn't threaten, didn't make a single unnecessary move. His presence alone was a lesson in control, patience, and authority. The rookie cop's mind raced. Every scenario he had trained for seemed irrelevant here. What if he made the wrong choice? What if this man wasn't just calm, but also capable of defending himself with lethal precision? Then the thoughts turned inward. Now, think about it. Where are you watching this from? City, country, your neighborhood. Imagine standing in that same parking lot. The sun is glaring down, cars are lined up like silent witnesses, and a man exudes such calm power that you feel it before you see it. If I were there, I'd probably be frozen in place at first. Heart hammering, taking slow, careful breaths to control my panic. I'd be thinking, do not make a move, do not escalate, stay aware. Maybe I'd step back, keeping my hands visible, trying to mirror the calm I see in him. And I'd be silently hoping that the officer remembers he's trained to de-escalate, because any sudden action could make things spiral. Now, it's your turn. If you were there, what would you do? Would you follow his lead, stay calm, or try to intervene? Comment below and share your choice. Imagining yourself in the middle of that moment. Back in the lot, the rookie cop's adrenaline surged with each passing second. He tried to maintain control, but his hands were shaking. He barked, repeating his commands louder, hoping the volume would mask his uncertainty. Stay where you are, don't move another inch. Stephen tilted his head slightly, a subtle gesture that seemed to convey both observation and patience. Sir, you don't need to do this, he said. His voice calm but firm like water slowly carving through rock. The words had a strange effect. They didn't provoke fear, but they planted doubt in the officer's mind. Every movement, every pause, every calculated breath from Stephen highlighted the rookie's lack of composure. The officer realized he was being silently assessed, tested without words, and that realization made him even more tense. The bystanders were completely absorbed. One young man whispered, "Is he really Steven Seagal?" While filming, a woman murmured to her friend, "He's so calm. How is he not scared?" The collective curiosity and tension pressed down like heat in a closed room. Steven's strategy was simple but effective. Remain calm, remain visible, and never make a move that could escalate the situation. Each of his movements was deliberate, a quiet reminder of control. The rookie cop, by contrast, was a storm of nerves, his every motion betraying doubt. Time seemed to stretch. Seconds felt like minutes. The parking lot, which had started as mundane and ordinary, had transformed into a high-stakes arena of tension, focus, and unspoken power. Every eye was fixed on Steven Seagal and the young officer, waiting for the moment that would finally tip the balance. In the calm before the storm, it was clear who had the psychological advantage. The man who didn't panic, who didn't flinch, who didn't escalate. The one standing quietly in the sunlit lot was in total control, and the one with the gun unsteady and unsure was beginning to realize the power of patience over panic. The rookie cop's hands trembled slightly as he held the gun aimed at Steven Seagal. Every second stretched like hours, and the quiet murmurs of the crowd seemed amplified in the open parking lot. A few bystanders shifted nervously, some raising their phones, others instinctively taking a step back. Even the dull hum of the city traffic in the distance felt louder, each passing car adding to the mounting tension. Stephen remained perfectly still, his posture relaxed but alert. He had faced dangerous situations countless times in his life. But this was different. This was not a fight to be won with speed or force. It was a psychological confrontation. His calmness was a shield, a subtle message to the officer. Aggression is ineffective against someone who does not panic. The officer barked another command, his voice cracking. "Move one step closer, and I swear I'll shoot." The words, though meant to intimidate, betrayed his inner turmoil. He was young, inexperienced, and unprepared for someone who radiated absolute composure. His finger twitched on the trigger, the adrenaline pumping through his veins, and yet his mind flickered with doubt. Is he really a threat? Or have I misjudged him completely? Around them, the crowd's whispers grew. "Isn't that Steven Seagal?" Someone asked quietly, barely audible over the tension. A woman filming on her phone took a cautious step closer to get a better view, then froze. Every eye seemed to be drawn to the stark contrast between the unshakable calm of Stephen and the shaking anxiety of the rookie cop. Stephen finally spoke, his voice low but steady. "Sir, you don't need to do this. I'm not a threat." The words were deliberate, commanding without hostility, and the effect was immediate. The rookie's finger faltered slightly. He hadn't expected composure to carry such weight. Every instinct he had, every rule drilled into him during training, was being tested, and he realized he was losing ground mentally. The crowd collectively held their breath. The parking lot had transformed into a silent arena. Cars and concrete walls acted as mute witnesses, and the afternoon sun cast long shadows over the scene. The officer's movements became erratic. He took small steps back, the weapon still raised, eyes darting between Stephen and the growing cluster of bystanders. The fear of public scrutiny weighed heavily upon him, amplifying his nervousness. Stephen's gaze was calm but piercing. His hands remained open, relaxed, but there was an unmistakable aura of authority surrounding him. It wasn't physical strength that commanded respect. It was mastery over the moment, mastery over oneself. The rookie cop's mind raced, and in that instant, every training drill and every fear collided into a single overwhelming decision point: act rashly or pause and assess. Now, imagine yourself in the middle of that lot. You're standing just a few feet away, watching a tense standoff unfold. The officer has a gun raised, voice sharp, and every instinct in your body screams for caution. You can feel the heat of the sun on your skin, hear the subtle shuffle of bystanders, and sense the weight of a moment that could go wrong in an instant. If I were there, I'd probably focus on my breathing first, forcing myself to slow down. I'd observe every movement, every twitch, and try to predict what might happen next. I'd think, do not make a sudden move, stay calm, stay aware, use the situation, don't react impulsively. Maybe I'd even speak softly to myself, grounding myself in the logic of the moment, reminding myself that panic leads to mistakes. Now, it's your turn. Imagine you are in that parking lot. What would you do? How would you act if you were watching this unfold in real time? Back in the lot, the rookie cop's confidence continued to falter. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other, trying to mask the shake in his hands. Stephen didn't take a single step forward, didn't make any threatening gesture. Yet his quiet presence dominated the scene. The crowd instinctively created a wider perimeter, some instinctively whispering reassurances to themselves, some frozen in awe of what they were witnessing. Every breath seemed amplified, every heartbeat synchronized with the unspoken tension. The officer tried to assert control again, shouting another command, but it lacked the force it had held a moment ago. His inner conflict was apparent. Training told him to act decisively, but instinct and common sense screamed caution. He was caught between authority and fear. Stephen's measured, calm stance acted like a mirror, reflecting back the officer's uncertainty. The air seemed to thicken with anticipation. The rookie's mind raced through every possible outcome, every possible consequence of a single wrong move. In the meantime, the crowd, now fully aware of the gravity of the situation, began holding their collective breath. Time stretched, seconds elongating into eternities. The dynamic had subtly shifted. The rookie was no longer fully in control, and the calm mastery of Seagal had begun to dominate the psychological battle. Every small movement mattered. Every sound, every glare, every subtle twitch became part of a complex dance of awareness, control, and unspoken tension. And in that quiet struggle, one thing was already clear: strength alone wasn't enough. Mastery of calm, focus, and observation would determine how this moment played out, and everyone watching could feel it in the charged air of that ordinary parking lot. The sound of sirens in the distance was faint, almost drowned out by the tense silence of the parking lot, but it brought a sudden shift in the atmosphere. The rookie cop's grip on the weapon tightened as his footsteps faltered. Every instinct screamed that reinforcements were near, yet he couldn't shake the doubt that had begun creeping into his mind. Seagal remained still, calm, unshaken by the rookie's growing panic. His eyes scanned the lot, measuring distances, reading body language, and predicting movements with a precision that only years of experience could provide. Moments later, the unmistakable presence of a senior officer, the police chief himself, materialized at the edge of the parking lot. His uniform was immaculate, badge gleaming in the sunlight, and the sharpness in his stride immediately drew the attention of everyone around. The chief's eyes narrowed slightly as he took in the scene. A nervous young officer pointing a weapon at a composed man standing unthreateningly in the middle of the lot, a small crowd forming and recording the event. "Lower your weapon," The chief commanded in a voice both authoritative and calm. The words sliced through the tension like a knife. The rookie's hands wavered, and his knees almost gave out under the pressure. Stephen's gaze didn't waver. His calm energy radiated a silent message. He posed no threat, yet the intensity in his presence was undeniable, an unspoken assertion that he was fully aware of the danger and fully in control of the situation. The rookie cop's heartbeat raced. He could feel the weight of judgment from the senior officer. The chief approached slowly, taking in every detail: the rookie's trembling posture, the rigid angle of the firearm, the crowd of bystanders frozen in anticipation, and the man in front of them all, Steven Seagal, whose legendary reputation had preceded him, but whose presence now spoke louder than any rumors or news clips. The chief's eyes widened ever so slightly as recognition struck him. "That's Steven Seagal," the chief muttered under his breath, almost incredulous. The realization hit like a thunderclap. The rookie's weapon, the aggressive posturing, and the entire tense scenario suddenly made the chief's mind reel. Here was one of the most respected martial artists and actors standing calmly, completely unarmed, in front of a rookie who had nearly lost control. Steven's calmness seemed almost effortless, yet it carried a magnetic authority that quieted the crowd. Bystanders whispered amongst themselves, some murmuring, "Is he really him? The real Steven Seagal?" Cameras continued to record, capturing every detail of the unfolding drama. The chief stepped forward, commanding attention without a word. He looked the rookie in the eye and gave a subtle nod. A silent message. It's time to de-escalate. The young officer's hands shook as he slowly lowered his weapon, his mind still trying to reconcile the situation. Steven remained composed, his gaze steady and unwavering, demonstrating a mastery of presence and control that few could match. The tension was tangible, stretching across the lot, pressing against the bystanders like a physical force. Every small movement mattered: the shuffle of feet, the adjustment of the officer's stance, the subtle shift in Steven's weight, all carried immense weight. The crowd, now fully aware of the unfolding reality, held its collective breath. Now, pause for a moment, and imagine yourself there. The police chief has arrived, his commanding presence cutting through the tension. You're standing just feet away, witnessing every subtle movement, feeling your pulse quicken with the weight of the moment. If I were there, I'd probably freeze for a second, overwhelmed by the sudden arrival of authority and the recognition of Steven Seagal's legendary presence. My mind would race with calculations. Do I step back? Do I stay calm? How do I avoid escalating this further? I'd focus on my breathing, slow my thoughts, and keep my hands visible, silently observing every motion. Now it's your turn. Imagine yourself in that parking lot. If you were watching this unfold in real time, what would your first move be? Would you stay still, intervene, or follow Steven's example of calm mastery? Back in the lot, the rookie cop's panic was tempered by the chief's authority. He slowly backed away, lowering the weapon completely. The crowd relaxed slightly, though a ripple of nervous energy still coursed through the lot. Steven's calm presence acted as a silent anchor, stabilizing the situation without a single aggressive gesture. The chief, still assessing, exchanged a quick glance with the rookie, signaling both concern and instruction. He then turned his attention to Steven, offering a nod of acknowledgement and respect, understanding immediately the unique combination of calm, skill, and authority that this man embodied. For the bystanders, the scene had transformed from a potential crisis to a demonstration of discipline, control, and respect. Cameras continued to roll, capturing every tense second, every micro-expression, every subtle shift in body language. This moment would not be forgotten, and in many ways, it was already beginning to live on in the recordings and whispers of those present. Steven stood, unflinching, an unspoken lesson radiating from him. Calm mastery and awareness could control even the most volatile situations. And in the parking lot that afternoon, under the glaring sun and the watchful eyes of a growing crowd, the stage was set for the final demonstration of his unparalleled composure. The parking lot was suffused with tension, the kind that pressed down on everyone like invisible weight. The rookie cop's hands had finally lowered the weapon, though his body remained tense, muscles coiled as if ready to spring. Bystanders continued to whisper, cameras rolling, capturing the delicate balance of fear, authority, and restraint. Steven Seagal, however, remained the embodiment of calm. Every inch of him exuded confidence and control. Yet there was not an ounce of aggression in his stance. He shifted slightly, a subtle movement that was almost imperceptible. It wasn't a step forward or a threat. It was simply a repositioning, a demonstration of balance and awareness. His presence alone seemed to draw the collective attention of the crowd, commanding silence without raising his voice. Every eye followed him, every camera frame capturing the subtle but powerful control he maintained over the moment. "Sir," Stephen began, his voice steady and deliberate. "I understand your duty, but I am not a threat. You don't need to do this." The words were soft yet commanding, weighted with authority that came not from aggression, but from mastery of oneself. The rookie cop's gaze flickered, uncertainty mixing with relief. The crowd held its breath. Then came the subtle demonstration. A single, controlled Aikido-inspired movement. Stephen didn't strike or push. He didn't need to. With a careful pivot and shift of his weight, he demonstrated the principle of control. One small, precise action could redirect an opponent's balance without force. The effect was instantaneous. The rookie's stance wavered, his muscles relaxing slightly as he instinctively recognized that the perceived threat was neutralized. Not through aggression, but through calm skill. The police chief's eyes widened, a mixture of surprise and admiration crossing his face. He had dealt with countless tense situations in his career, but he had never witnessed a display quite like this. Control without force, dominance without violence. The crowd collectively exhaled, the tension slowly melting as they realized that what they had feared was not danger but misunderstanding. Stephen's calm mastery radiated outward. His presence alone dictated the rhythm of the interaction. The rookie cop, now visibly shaken but relieved, lowered his weapon fully and took a careful step back. It was a silent acknowledgement. The situation was over. The threat neutralized, and no one had been harmed. Pause for a moment, and imagine yourself in that parking lot. You've been watching a tense standoff unfold, heart racing, every sense heightened. Then, you see it, a calm, deliberate move that neutralizes tension without a single act of aggression. If I were there, I'd probably feel a mix of awe and relief. My thoughts would be racing. Wow, that was effortless and precise. Control really is more powerful than aggression. I might even reflect inwardly on my own reactions in stressful moments, realizing how much panic can cloud judgment. Now it's your turn. If you were standing there, what would your reaction be? Would you stay frozen? Or would you take a deep breath and let calm guide you? The rookie cop now understood something vital. He had approached the situation with fear and urgency, ready to act decisively. But Stephen's calm mastery had transformed the scenario entirely. What had seemed like a potentially catastrophic encounter was now a lesson in awareness, patience, and presence. Bystanders, once tense and hesitant, now began to murmur in awe. Some whispered about the precision of Stephen's movement, others about the effect it had on the officer. Cameras continued rolling, but the tone had shifted. This was no longer a story of confrontation. It was a story of control, skill, and quiet authority. The police chief finally spoke, his voice firm but respectful. "Good job holding your composure, officer. And thank you, sir," he said to Stephen, acknowledging both the lesson and the resolution. The rookie nodded, grateful but humbled, understanding that in moments like these, patience and observation often carry far more weight than raw force. Stephen didn't gloat. He remained composed, his hands relaxed, his eyes calm. There was no need for words beyond what had already been said through his actions. The parking lot, once charged with tension, now felt almost serene in contrast. Every individual present had witnessed a rare and powerful display, a demonstration that true mastery lies not in aggression, but in control, awareness, and calm decisiveness. As the crowd slowly began to disperse, whispers followed them. The recordings captured the subtle movements, the unspoken lesson, and the undeniable authority of a man who could command respect without raising his voice. It was a moment that would not soon be forgotten, and it carried a lesson that transcended the immediate incident. In the face of fear, calm mastery is the greatest power of all. The parking lot, which had been a stage of mounting tension just moments before, now carried a different energy. Steven Seagal's calm mastery had shifted the dynamic entirely. The rookie cop, weapon lowered, stood frozen in a mix of relief and embarrassment, sweat glistening on his forehead under the afternoon sun. His mind replayed the confrontation in endless loops, the commands, the twitching hands, and most vividly, Stephen's quiet control that had rendered his fear and aggression ineffective. The police chief took a deliberate step forward, his eyes scanning every detail. He had dealt with countless tense encounters in his career, but what he had just witnessed was extraordinary. His gaze lingered on the rookie, whose posture had stiffened with the realization of his mistake. "Do you understand what just happened here?" the chief asked, his voice firm but carrying a weight of disappointment and concern. The young officer swallowed hard, trying to steady his voice. "Yes, sir," he stammered, his words barely audible. I lost focus under pressure. I acted too quickly." The chief's expression softened slightly, tempered by experience and understanding. Yet the gravity of the rookie's mistake was unmistakable. "You were lucky," the chief continued, glancing at Stephen. "Extremely lucky that this man remained calm. Remember, training is important, but awareness, patience, and observation can prevent mistakes that force you to learn lessons the hard way." Stephen gave a slight nod, acknowledging both the rookie and the chief without saying a single word. His calm aura remained intact, commanding respect silently. It was a lesson not just for the officer, but for every bystander who had witnessed the event. The rookie lowered his gaze, humiliated yet enlightened. He had faced a man whose presence alone dictated the outcome. A man who had turned potential danger into a demonstration of skill and patience. Every heartbeat of fear, every twitch of uncertainty had been magnified and then neutralized, leaving a clear, unforgettable impression. Bystanders continued to murmur among themselves, some still recording on their phones, their whispers now tinged with admiration and awe rather than fear. "Did you see that?" one woman whispered. "He didn't need to fight, and the cop didn't know how to react." Incredible. Even the police chief could not hide his astonishment. He shook his head slightly and spoke again, directing the rookie's attention. "This is a lesson you will never forget. Discipline alone does not make an officer effective. Understanding, calm, and measured responses, those are what save lives and prevent humiliation." The rookie nodded again, feeling a wave of both shame and gratitude. Shame for his reckless approach, gratitude for witnessing a masterful demonstration of control in the face of fear. He realized that his actions, though well-intentioned, had been guided by panic rather than awareness. Now imagine yourself in that parking lot. You've been watching everything unfold. A rookie officer pointing a gun, a crowd frozen in anticipation, and Steven Seagal's calm presence slowly diffusing the tension. The police chief steps in, eyes wide with realization, and the rookie stands humiliated yet enlightened. If I were there, I'd probably feel a mix of relief, awe, and self-reflection all at once. I would think, wow, composure is everything. I need to remember this if I'm ever faced with a tense situation myself. Panic only makes things worse. I'd feel the weight of witnessing a real-life lesson in calm authority and control. Now, it's your turn. If you were there, what would your reaction be? Would you feel inspired, humbled, or shocked? Back in the lot, the tension continued to dissipate. The rookie, now fully aware of the gravity of his actions, carefully lowered his weapon and took a step back. The police chief remained a silent observer, impressed not only by Stephen's control, but also by the effectiveness of his demonstration as a teaching moment. The crowd slowly began to relax. The whispers turned into quiet conversations, and the sense of imminent danger that had gripped the parking lot moments before was replaced by a shared appreciation of what had just transpired. It was a lesson in humility, patience, and mastery of self, an unforgettable experience for everyone present. Stephen finally spoke again, his voice calm but carrying quiet authority. Situations like these are tests of patience, awareness, and understanding. Force is not always the answer. Control and composure will always win. The words hung in the air, a silent echo of the events that had just unfolded. The crowd nodded subtly, recording their own thoughts mentally as much as on their devices. Even the police chief allowed a small smile of approval, acknowledging the lesson imparted not through confrontation but through presence. The rookie cop, though still embarrassed, seemed transformed. The encounter had been a harsh teacher, but the lesson was indelible. Awareness and calm were more powerful than panic and aggression. By the time the last bystanders left the lot, the story had already begun to take on a life of its own. Videos circulated on social media, retelling the moment in multiple angles, showing a young officer humbled and a masterful legend standing calm in the sunlit parking lot. It was an incident that would be remembered for years, a rare example of real-life skill and composure in action. By the time the sun dipped slightly toward the horizon, the parking lot had returned to a semblance of normalcy. The rookie officer stood a few feet away from Steven Seagal, still visibly shaken but no longer tense, the weapon safely holstered. The police chief lingered nearby, eyes still scanning the area, a subtle smile of acknowledgement on his face. Around them, bystanders began dispersing slowly, cameras in hand, whispers of awe filling the air. Yet the story was far from over. Within minutes, footage of the encounter began circulating online. Videos recorded by onlookers captured the tension, the momentary fear, and most importantly, the quiet, unshakable composure of Steven Seagal. Clips shared on social media quickly went viral, drawing attention from viewers around the world. Comments poured in, many marveling at the calm authority displayed and the powerful lesson imparted without a single aggressive move. "Wow, this is a masterclass in calm control," one viewer wrote. Another added, "I've never seen someone handle a tense situation like this. Absolute respect." The incident sparked debate across platforms from martial arts communities to law enforcement forums. Analysts praised Steven's psychological presence, noting that awareness and patience often outweigh brute force in high-stakes situations. Back in the parking lot, Steven remained calm, observing as the rookie cop absorbed the experience. The young officer's embarrassment had shifted to understanding. He nodded subtly to Steven, a silent acknowledgement of the lesson he had just learned. Presence, awareness, and patience can neutralize even the most intimidating situations. The police chief also reflected on the encounter. He knew that training alone wasn't enough. Experience, calm judgment, and the ability to de-escalate were invaluable. He placed a firm, encouraging hand on the rookie's shoulder. "Today, you saw the difference between fear and awareness," the chief said. "Learn this lesson well. It will save lives, yours and others." Steven, ever composed, addressed the gathering crowd one last time. "Force alone does not resolve conflicts," he said, his voice low, clear, and unwavering. "Awareness, patience, and control, these are the true strengths. Let this be a reminder, calm mastery often speaks louder than aggression." Now, think about yourself watching this unfold. You've seen fear, tension, authority, and skill all in one moment. Imagine standing in that parking lot, witnessing this firsthand. How would you respond? Would you panic, freeze, or follow Steven's example of calm mastery? If I were there, I would feel awe and inspiration. I would reflect on my own reactions in stressful moments, understanding that composure can neutralize situations that force and aggression cannot. I'd remember this lesson for the rest of my life. Presence, patience, and awareness are true power. Now it's your turn. Comment below with your answer how you would handle a tense moment. And if you believe that calm mastery can overcome fear and aggression, hit like and subscribe for more real-life stories that teach powerful lessons like this one. The viral clips continued spreading across social media. People praised Steven's discipline, highlighted the rookie officer's learning moment, and applauded the police chief's composed handling of the aftermath. The story became more than just a viral video. It evolved into a real-life lesson in humility, control, and the power of patience. Even weeks later, discussions continued online. Martial artists analyzed every subtle movement, law enforcement forums debated protocols, and viewers from around the globe shared their reflections. One recurring theme emerged. Steven Seagal had demonstrated, without a single aggressive action, that composure and awareness could control the outcome of potentially dangerous encounters. For the rookie officer, the incident would never be forgotten. The humbling experience became a cornerstone of his understanding of discipline, patience, and judgment under pressure. For the police chief, it was a reminder that leadership sometimes involves witnessing the unexpected and guiding others through reflection and insight. And for the world watching, it was a reminder that even in moments of fear and tension, calm mastery, observation, and patience can change everything. The parking lot, once a stage of potential chaos, had become a classroom. Steven Seagal had taught a lesson in silent authority, leaving a lasting impact on everyone present. His calm presence, his ability to neutralize fear without aggression, and the lessons learned by both the rookie and the chief had transformed an ordinary afternoon into an unforgettable story of skill, awareness, and control.